Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is Vorian from the Abaddon Journal, and this is going to be another episode of Vorian's Hobby Journal, and we are going to continue the theme of hashtag 25 years of Land Raider. Now, this is something that I wanted to make for a few days now, and actually I got the idea to do this with my last video on the Land Raider thing, when I showed off all the new Land Raiders I'd built a few weeks ago. And now I wanted to show something that is a bit more fun and is probably a whole bit more, visually appealing to you, the viewer. And that is showing you some of my painted Land Raiders, which I do have as of this moment now. I have 3 of them. So after the jump, that is what we're going to check out. So stay tuned and follow me for the jump. Cheers. Alright guys, so welcome back to After the Jump, and these are my 3 painted Land Raiders. Now as you can see, they're all in different colors, and 2 of them are Crusaders, and 1 of them is a regular Land Raider. Now the whole thing with these guys is that, the first one right here, this is for my homebrew White Scars called the Tempest Sentinels, and they are a chapter I, cooked up during 2019, when the Space Marine 2.0 Codex came out during 8th edition. And I wanted to start a White Scars army at the time, but I did not want to paint white. And so eventually, I was just like, okay, I'm just going to cook up a different scheme and just, roll with it for whatever comes. Now, this tank looks a little bit different, slightly, to the rest of my army. And that's because this guy is painted with the regular base paints and layer paints and washes and shades and everything, whereas my the actual army, all the infantry and stuff, they're all painted with contrast paints primarily. I couldn't replicate contrast paints on a tank. It's not easy, especially since most of my collection of contrast paints is from the original range from summer of 2019, so that makes a huge difference right there. But anyways, I just want to show off the different tanks. So as I said, this one is for my White Scars. This one is for my Death Watch army. And I see that a guy has fallen off. So let me fix that real quick. There we go. So that's for the Death Watch. And this, my most recently painted tank. This one is for my 40k Blood Angels. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in for a close-up. And I'm going to talk about what the challenges were to paint each of these 3 Land Raiders, and then I'm gonna share the other Land Raiders that I have, and those aren't painted, they're built. One of them is primed, and we'll just go into more details with that. So just give me a second, and I'll zoom in. So let's talk about this one first. I'll show him off. Oh, unfortunately, it seems that this has come off. I didn't notice that before. Oops, my bad, guys. My apologies for this, but I'll show it off real quick anyways. So as you can see, there's a whole bunch of freehanding. It's not the best. This is essentially the first time I tried to freehand anything. Little bits and pieces on this guy are broken, unfortunately. And, I just pretty much forgotten about this until I took it out to correct it. So yeah, so just showing off the freehand there, and closer look. So this is the first Land Raider I've painted, and this was done back in 2023, sometime in fall. I was getting ready to go to Dubai for a single day tournament, 3 games, and I was gonna take my White Scars army with me, and so essentially that is what I was racing to do on a deadline, as my plans had been made relatively late and I just had so many things to get through. So as you can see on that tank, I've tried to paint a lot of different things on it, but it's not very good. There are so many places where I could improve. I'm even looking at it right now, I can just tell straight off some stuff I could improve that I picked up in like the last year and a half. And especially, you can see that the colors, there's just 2 primary colors, the yellow and the blue, and they look very flat. There's no real definition to those, and that has been a challenge for me while doing my painting, because even on the infantry, it doesn't matter as much. There's so many of them around, and things kind of like tend to get lost in translation like that. But when you look at a big model like that, yeah, it makes a huge difference when you're looking at it. And you can see I try to do a little bit shading and wash on the yellow in some places, like on the assault cannon cowling here, but it just looks horrible. It's not the best paint job I've ever done, but considering it's like the first big tank I've painted, not counting the Death Watch Predators I've done in the past, I think this was still a pretty damn good job, especially as I was doing the whole army on a bit of a crunch. I didn't get to finish the entire army, unfortunately, but I did get a lot of things painted, and I liked having that challenge. So moving on to my Death Watch Crusader, I really like how this one came out. This was painted last year, I believe, for during March, for the March for Death Watch kind of like challenge I'd set up for myself. I painted like, I don't know, something like 30 Death Watch models or something like that. Crazy. I painted a lot of Death Watch last year. This year not so much, but yeah. So there's no freehanding on this one. More like just painting a lot of details, sticking to the overall theme. You know, majority black with some red accents and details here and there to break it up, because the Death Watch uses red as a signifier for a lot of different things, and I thought it would look good here. So anyways, so like I said, there's things I learned while painting this thing that I wish I could have gone back in time and applied to the first Land Raider. And that is mostly just honing in on the details much better and trying to get the colors down right. It was still a huge challenge for me, I'm not gonna lie. And while it is a huge step up from the first one, again, there are things I could do on this model that I have learned to do now, that I've been like, okay, so I was scared to do them before, but now I can do them. And I think the biggest part of that is just doing highlights, because once again, the black looks a little flat, and the red, while it does show off pretty well, again, I can still do some highlights on a lot of the red stuff, and just fine tune the details, get it up to par with where I feel my current level of skill is with painting these models, and just going with that. So gonna turn the camera around a little bit right here, and go on to my third Land Raider. So this one, the others were Crusaders. This is the basic Land Raider. Now, as you can see, there is some freehanding on here. I should have done some more freehanding on the cowling here. I was going to, but when I was trying to get this done, it just totally slipped my mind. I just realized that, as you can see here, there's some more freehanding here on the heavy bolter cowling and the top of the lights right there in the crew compartment. And again, as you can see, there's a lot of stuff I've done here that is different from the norm, and looks better. It's like, oh god, those highlights are just like, they're just screaming to me. It's, wow. Okay, on a video this looks really good. On a photo and like just holding it, it doesn't look as good, but in a video the highlights are just popping. It's like, oh my god, man. Yeah. It's pretty amazing stuff right here. Okay, so let's put it back. So as you can see, there is a distinct evolution between the three tanks, right? I start off with something where all the details are painted, but they don't look good. The details are painted and they look good, and then on this one we get to the highlights, and I'm trying to play a little bit more with the colors as well. Someone pointed out to me on social media that they really enjoyed the Devastator highlights, the Devastator scheme on the tank, because like for Blood Angels, their heavy support choices or the fire support units, they wear blue helmets, and that is reflected on this tank with all the blue highlights I have. And I was like, wow, I was like, I went with blue because it looks like a, to me it looks like a very natural companion color on viewing, and it's sufficiently different from the usual scheme where it can stand out. I just didn't, I was just even thinking about this whole fire support thingy, and which kind of makes sense because a Land Raider is technically a heavy support unit, so it makes sense. And you can see where I gave it the golden color on the doors and the hatch right here because gold is one of the colors to signify the the first company and elite warriors in a chapter. It's got the black because that's kind of the thing, and of course the red all over. The black, it does have highlights. They're not as apparent, I don't think, but it does have Incubi Darkness highlights on it. Here, and the last cannon cowlings right there. A little bit here as well, but generally nowhere else. But I did make a point to do as many orange highlights as I could do on the red armor because that would be more striking. And oh my god, it looks gorgeous right now. It's like, I have to say, I'm like in love with how this tag is looking on a video right now because like the highlights are just like they're strong, and I guess that was one of the reasons why I wanted to do strong highlights because last year I painted a Redemptor Dreadnought from Blood Angels for 40k, and I used the orange highlights, and they look so good. Again, I wish I'd taken videos of that, but you can find some photos on my Instagram or on my Twitter and Bluesky profiles as well. But anyways, yeah. So lots to learn from going from this tank to this tank, over a year and a half period. I think it's been a really good for me to, grow my skills, especially when it comes to highlights, because I've been scared of doing highlights for such a long time. And seeing how they look right now, you know, it gives me a boost of confidence that I can do highlights better. Um, in some places, the highlights are not as good; they're a bit clunky, uneven, and people just keep telling me, it comes with practice. So yeah, I'm gonna start doing that. What I would like to do is go back to both of these two tanks right here and get highlights done on them as well. Maybe some recessed shadows on this one for sure, because there are things where that could improve the model. But overall, yeah, I'm quite happy with how these three have turned out, and they make a really nice triplet for just my armies. So, anyways, guys, so that's the major part of the video, and now I'm gonna switch to the other stuff that I have, and kind of go over those tanks a little bit, and we'll get to that after the jump. So just keep watching. I'll be right back. Alright guys, so welcome back to the final segment, and I'm gonna go over this very quickly. I've talked about these two tanks before in a video, so you guys don't want to hear too much about them again. But once again, so this is my White Scars Land Raider. You can see where I have the 3D printed cowling, the doors right here, and the hatch. I'll just tilt this up a little bit, so maybe that's cleared. So yeah, there we go a little bit. And this one is for my Death Watch. I didn't have doors done for this one. I just got the symbols printed and just stuck them on the doors with some creative fitting. And then this one, I feel I should talk about this one a little bit more because this is the first Land Raider I got when I got back into the hobby in 2018. Fairly early on, and I always wanted to, just I got the Crusader because in my mind, I had a specific image from back in the days of playing 40k back in late 4th and 5th edition, and I want to evoke that again. But of course, the rules are so different now, and that specific scenario doesn't work anymore. But I still had that image, and having a Crusader was a huge part of that. So I want to get the Crusader. I really should have gotten a regular Land Raider first, I guess. But, I'm pretty happy with it. So as you can see, this is the oldest Land Raider I have, and it's not painted. It's been sitting primed like that for 7 years now, pretty much on the dot, I think. And, I've painted up the Land Raider, the Blood Angels Land Raider I painted up like last week. That's the most recent built Land Raider, right? Along with these two right here. So it's kind of funny how I've painted other Land Raiders, but not this one. But sorry about that. Just the table's a bit rickety right here. So anyways, yeah. So the goal for me is going to be that I have 3 Land Raiders painted now. So 2 Crusaders and a regular Land Raider. And here I have 2 regular Land Raiders and a Crusader to paint. So what I want to do, is paint this White Scars Land Raider up next whenever I can fit it into my schedule. Because I want to mimic the whole journey thing, right? So I want to work on this one, then I'll work on the Death Watch one, and I'll leave all my leveled up skills for last for the Blood Angels, which feels very appropriate, and I think it's gonna work out really well. And this one will definitely be a huge challenge to do the highlights and the shadows and everything. And this one, it won't be as big of a challenge. That'll mostly come with just doing the highlights, but I have a pretty good reference with my other painted Land Raider for it, so it's gonna be much easier. And of course, the Crusader right here. You all saw the other one I did, and I have some skills, I feel. So yeah. So anyways, that's me, guys, and I'm gonna sign off right now. Sorry for having my face be all up in the video right now, but thank you for sticking around if you did, and just make sure to like and subscribe to the channel, and I'm going to be bringing you more videos very soon, so please keep an eye out for that, and I'll see you next time. Bye. Cheers.